Good evening and welcome once again to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We are coming to you broadcasting from the studios of the American Guns and Glory Network here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related political issues, and self-defense issues, mostly self-defense issues. Fired Up with Bob Irwin is on YouTube with a new show appearing on if you subscribe to it, you'll find at the end of the show there's a little thing on the bottom of the reader here that you can see that will, when you look at a show, we'll ask you if you want to subscribe, and if you do that, they'll come automatically to your email. We have put up a new show every Thursday around 5 in the afternoon, and they stay online forever, so if you miss something, you can come back and look at what we said. The audio feed only is rebroadcast for radio listeners on Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can find them if you go to Nevada Talk Network or go to www.KELY1230.com, and we'll list the stations in your area. It's broadcast all over Nevada simultaneously, and always comes on at noon on Saturdays. If you have questions or comments, you can send an email to bob@firedupmail.com. I think that'll be on the bottom of your screen also. And if you want to leave a message, my office recorder is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, I will answer. We always respond to everybody eventually by email or by text message or whatever is appropriate for how you give us your contact information. And if you have a question for one of my guests or one of our attorneys, you can address it to that same email or the same telephone number, and I will forward it to the people you're trying to get a hold of. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, depending on who's doing the survey, 200 to 300. The mainstream media rarely covers them because it makes guns look good. So we always present a few of these cases for the education of our listeners as to what happened. Generally, I delete the names, but I will put the location of the city or town, state in, because local law obviously prevails. Most are good shootings. Sometimes I do a questionable shooting, and once in a while there's one that's just plain wrong. But the reason it's on there is to show listeners what happened, and they can put themselves in that scenario with the what would I do if I had a chance to, if this same thing came up to me, and you learn from it. As we are a nationwide show, actually worldwide, if there's a particular case that you're already involved in, it will obviously be adjudicated by local law. The laws vary dramatically from state to state, county to county, and city to city in some cases. So if you have a current case that's under review or you're in trouble over a shooting or think you might be, you need to contact a local attorney, criminal defense attorney, to represent you rather than use the advice from the show, which may not apply in your state. So that all being said, you know, what is a reasonable shooting in Wyoming is not a reasonable shooting in New York City, almost guaranteed. So the advice we're giving is to keep you safe and out of jail and hopefully prevent losing a civil lawsuit. Anyway, all that being said, we can actually start with the show. My guest today is firearms trainer and terrorism expert, Lenny Davis, frequent guest on the show. Lenny, if you'd give a little of your background, please, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, Bob. Thanks for having me back, as always. My name is Lenny Davis. I'm a retired special agent with Department of Homeland Security. I've spent about 10 years as an anti-terrorism expert for the U.S. State Department in the Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. And now I am the Director of Investigations and Training for Techstratics International, a security firm based here in Las Vegas.
Oh. Well, that was short for
Well,
you, but I'll get you riled up later.
Well, I'm all about all-around good-looking guy, but other than that, yeah.
This report is from News Channel 13. It's the ABC affiliate in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Back on 10/13/2017, a store clerk who defended himself with a pistol, we discover, from that incident during an armed robbery is now out of a job after getting fired for bringing a gun into the store. 2 weeks prior, the employee was working the overnight shift at a convenience store on Fillmore Street when 2 armed suspects entered the store around 3 a.m. pointing their firearms, their weapons, the story said, at him, demanding money. Looking down the barrel of a gun that you know is wielded with hostile intent is frightening, the clerk said. When he asked the suspects not to point their weapons at his face and they didn't listen, he then drew his own weapon. They kept pointing their guns at my head. I stepped behind cover and drew my weapon. The suspects were frightened by the gun. This is real life, folks. When the clerk tried to grab one of the suspect's weapons, he was shot through his left arm. He said it felt like being stabbed. The bullet went through his arm and out his elbow. Ouch. Both suspects turned and fled. They escaped without the victim firing a shot. He was taken to the hospital for a minor injury and then went back to work that same early morning. This happened at 3 a.m., so the same morning he's back at work. After hearing of other robberies that happened that week at other company stores, one of them involving a clerk getting assaulted and taken to the hospital, the other involving an armed robbery where the suspect brought in a shotgun, he was a little worried about getting killed on duty, so that night, the night of the shooting, was the first time he brought his pistol to work. 2 weeks after the event, the victim received a call from his manager saying he was being fired for bringing a gun to work. He was shocked that he was fired for simply trying to defend himself. He talked to the media, not necessarily a great idea, but he's already fired. He told them, I accept the risks. I understand working overnight at a gas station is dangerous. What I don't accept is a company wouldn't take care of those dangers for their employees, instead fires me for protecting myself. Still, he does not regret pulling out his gun to defend himself. He said, if I hadn't had it, I might very well have died. The convenience store's corporate office did not return media calls for comment, not surprising. Here we go.
Well, number one, this man's work ethic, if somebody's looking for a clerk for a convenience store, this guy gets shot in the arm at 3 o'clock in the morning and goes back to work before the end of his shift. I mean, that's some work ethic, folks. Yeah. I don't care who you are.
This is a tough guy.
It's pretty, it's pretty sad commentary. I agree with you that, here, this man probably has a CCW, or maybe in this state allows for a CCW without a permit. I can tell you what, I wouldn't be working on a graveyard in a convenience store without carrying a weapon. We just see this all the time, and you have to protect yourself.
Yeah, talking about whether he could have the gun, it's in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and Colorado was one of the states where it kind of varies county to county, and right. I don't know what the regs were for that. But apparently, the corporation considers the costs of the lawsuit should the bad guys sue the store because they're injured when they ran out the door and they didn't do anything but shoot at him a couple times, versus the cost of deflecting that lawsuit versus the cost of training a new employee. Yeah. Do the math. If these guys can say, well, we were running away when we got shot, therefore, we weren't a threat. Here comes the lawsuit lawyer and so forth. Now, they're going to likely lose that case when the jury looks at the whole thing. But they'll want to settle it out of court and do the math. Is it cheaper to settle a $100,000 lawsuit or hire a new clerk and train him? That doesn't cost $100,000. So the solution to this is some type of a Castle Doctrine law that would apply to businesses as well as individuals. The state has a no duty to retreat statute. My understanding is, so the clerk is probably okay, but the business doesn't have the right to no duty to retreat, so they can still be sued. Voting for pro-gun legislators is the solution here, folks. When the election comes up, which is coming up, vote or don't complain when this type of thing happens.
Well, of course, you're talking about the state of Colorado that hire, they're they passed laws that restricted multiple shot large capacity magazines, and caused Magpul Company, to one of the biggest manufacturers in the country, who was based in Colorado, to move out.
Yeah.
And good for Magpul.
They're reaping what they sow. And
Yeah.
as these things happen and the bad guys get away with it or collect money for it, you can't lose on an armed robbery.
Yeah.
All you do is, if you get shot, then they pay for your injuries and you get to sue them. Vote, V-O-T-E, vote. We'll be back right after these messages. Don't go away. Hi, I just wanted to let listeners know about a great experience I recently had at Godden Ford. I just bought a new Ford Escape there, and they took terrific care of me. Sales manager Moses Martinez and salesman Joe Tim offered me a great deal for Fired Up fans. Call Godden Ford, they're at 702-731-2121, and ask for Joe Tim or Moses Martinez. Ask for the Fired Up discount. They will give you employee pricing. That is invoice plus $100 on any new or used vehicle on the lot. Remember, to receive the Fired Up discount, their employee pricing, you must ask for Joe Tim or Moses Martinez at Godden Ford. They're at 6625 Roy Horn Way here in Las Vegas. Tell them Bob from Fired Up sent you. Thanks. Do you have a firearms trust or need one to pass your guns along? The Justice Department, BATF, has changed the rules in the recent past. If you have a firearm trust, particularly a Class 3 firearm trust, it needs updating. My longtime friend, Attorney Jerry Creed, is an expert in these trusts. Call Jerry at 702-806-7777 at his Summerlin office for a free appointment and evaluation of your situation. That's Jerry Creed, 702-806-7777. Don't end up leaving your firearms to the government because you have an invalid or out-of-date trust. And we are back. That last commercial, that spokesman was absolutely right. I've run into this already in several other cases that I'm working on for other lawyers. And if you have a firearms trust, particularly a Class 3 trust, get it updated. If it was written more than a year ago, it's probably not worth the paper it's printed on, literally, because the rules have changed so much. So, and you'll be dead before you discover the trust doesn't work. Call Jerry Creed. This is from WKYT. It's a CBS affiliate, TV 36, in Cynthiana, Kentucky. This is back on December 18. A 57-year-old was shot and killed while breaking into his ex-wife's home in Harrison County on a Sunday night. Kentucky State Police Trooper Charles Loudermilk said the deceased broke the glass out of the home's front door and was reaching through to unlock the door when someone inside the home fatally shot him. The ex-wife told media that she and her boyfriend were in the home when the attempted break-in occurred. Warnings to stop were used. They didn't say specifically in the story what he said, but something to the effect of, "I've got a gun and get out of my house," or "Who are you?" something. He used the warnings before the boyfriend fired at the guy. When the ex-husband then still continued to try and get into the house, the boyfriend fired more shots and the would-be intruder died in the backyard. According to the woman, she was married to this guy until mid-2000. They had an on-again, off-again relationship, and after their marriage had ended, and that relationship was now over. She added the deceased had been threatening her and her boyfriend, texting and calling both of them separately and repeatedly. The ex-wife was in the courthouse recently dealing with an emergency protective order she had against them. She said he also recently spent a week in jail for an outburst in court. at the judge over the protective order. This guy is not bright. The woman declined to do an on-camera interview, which is a good idea. She said she felt bad for her ex-husband's family. She has known them for years. Police took both her and her boyfriend's, the current living boyfriend, phones as evidence. So far, neither have been arrested or charged. State police say they're still investigating. Perfect. Just,
I couldn't agree more. You know, she's done everything. Obviously, she did everything she was supposed to do legally. She filed a divorce case that was done. She filed an emergency protective order because he was threatening her. So there was obviously this guy was in the process of stalking and God only knows what. And then he goes to the point of breaking into the house. And when you break that threshold, when you break glass and you're reaching in to do that, you know, you've crossed that line. And at that point, you know, people say, well, how do you know what he's going to do? Well, you don't, but you don't know exactly what he's going to do, but you better believe that you should be in fear of your life at that point, and deadly force, in my opinion, and here in Nevada, would be authorized.
yeah, it's a valid shoot. And think of the, you know, this is why I use cases like this. This unarmed household saves himself from harm again. Keeping the text messages on their phones and having an issued court order for protection, ordering the guy, however, how it's worded for their state, but he has to stay 200 feet away from the house, or, you know, 1,000 feet or whatever. They all have distances where he's not allowed to go and not allowed any contact at all. They make this an open and shut case. They put the burden on the bad guy so they don't have to figure out who was right or who was wrong. He's already been ordered by a judge not to be there. And in this case, had actually mouthed off to the court and got himself in trouble with the judge already. One of the things that came up here is that why I use this enraged attacker died outside the home, and that fact is of little consequence in reality. I end up explaining this to juries a lot, and I know you've run into it with the guy dies in the backyard or dies in the front yard. On TV, when they shoot a bad guy, no matter where they shoot him, in the leg or the toe or the shoulder or whatever, blood comes out of his mouth, and he falls over slightly and says, "Tell Laura I love her," and collapses dead. In real life, they don't do that. They are in the motion of running already or trying to disengage if they're spinning or turning. But when they're shot, it doesn't hurt very much. Normally they'll realize at some point they've been hit and they will turn to flee. Even though they have what is a mortal wound, you don't die immediately. It takes several seconds at least, or several minutes. So they find the guy away from the home. That's normal. And I've been on the edge of cases where this has happened, and now the homeowner is looking at, oh my God, you know, he died on the lawn, and they drag the body inside or do something to change the crime scene and change the whole look of the investigation. Do they fake the scene? Leave him alone.
Yeah, don't.
The bullet holes going through the body, even if they didn't hit a wall behind him to tell you the exact line when the bullet was, you know, when the shot was fired. They can't find where the bullet actually went, but they can reconstruct whether he was standing, leaning, falling, and the bullet track will tell, this is not rocket science. They put a rod through the hole and see the track of the bullet, and then they attach a laser to the rod, if it doesn't have one attached already, which points back at where the shooter was standing. And all of this stuff can be reconstructed with footprints and skid marks and where the blood trail is. I mean, you can't lie at the scene of one of these shootings. So don't. I mean, they did it fine. They left it alone. The bullet holes will show that this was a valid shooting. I have no reason to believe it wouldn't possibly
Oh,
do
no,
that.
and-
But they're already way ahead because they're the good guy. If you have a harassment thing going on like this, not erasing the cell phone was a great idea. Keep the threats there. We've had cases where they erase everything because they don't want to read the message. If you can't erase them, or he's calling on a landline and you can't record it, tell somebody. Ideally, the police. Often women particularly are afraid to tell the police. Well, guys, because they look like wimps, and they don't want to bring the police in. Then write down the date and time and what was said. Keep a diary of it, so you have some, and they can look at the ink and see that you wrote this 30 days ago. There's all kinds of forensics that will prove, but you've got to record what's going on, that you're being threatened.
Right, and you make a very, very valid point. I mean, it's a crime scene. Don't disturb it, whether you're the one that is involved in it or not. And to touch back on what you were talking about as far as the bodies not falling down right there, and the Hollywood ending, I still use the 1986 FBI Miami shooting as a perfect example of that. One of the suspects had taken a wound from an FBI agent, 9mm, under his armpit, through his lung, and part of it had severed his aorta. He continued to fight for another 2 minutes and approximately 50 seconds, almost 3 minutes. And in that 3-minute time period, almost 3-minute time period, he killed 2 FBI agents and wounded 3 others. And the coroner, when they did the autopsy on him, the coroner said, had he been shot and fallen on an operating table, the wound would have been non-survivable. They couldn't have cracked his chest and repaired the artery damage prior to him expiring. So that people do travel, as Bob said, sometimes a long ways from the time they were actually shot till they actually stopped doing whatever they were doing.
Yeah, and any of you out there, which is going to be a lot of you, are actually hunters and have shot a deer that you got it clean through the lungs and you track it for 3 miles.
Well,
people do the same thing. People fall down faster because they think they should, where deer don't think they should. They don't know what happened, theoretically, but I'll have to interview a deer sometime and see what they think. But leave everything alone at the scene of a shooting. None of you out there are murderers planning to kill people, so leave the scene alone, no matter what. We'll be right back after another break for one of our sponsors. Don't go away. Hi. If you keep a firearm in your home or carry one for personal protection, it is incredibly important to get some training and keep up with changes in the law. My friend Maggie Mordaunt, owner of Homeland Personal Protection, is the place to go. Maggie teaches at Bass Pro as well as the Clark County Shooting Park and major gun shows here in Clark County and in Reno. You can check out her classes at ccwmaggie.com. That's ccwmaggie.com. Training is necessary. Thank you. Hi. Now you can get a copy of my recently updated book, The Reality of Armed Self-Defense. This is based on my 40 years experience in evaluating and defending lethal force cases. Learn the rules of using deadly force before you have to guess in the middle of a hostile situation. For Fired Up Special, you can get this book for only $10. If you live outside the first 48, please add appropriate postage. Mail orders can be sent to Bob Irwin, P.O. Box 97413, Las Vegas, Nevada 89193. Thanks for ordering one. That's a great book. You should actually pick one up next time you go to, well, the major gun shows we display at. When this show is being aired, we've got a show at the end of January 27th, 26th, 27th, somewhere in there. at the Sports Center. If you're local in Las Vegas, I'll be there at a table. Along, I understand now Don Green is going to make that show also, so we'll both be there if you want to come. So you can come by if you want.
I might do that. Never know.
I can arrange to get you a pass, maybe.
Well,
This is from NBC News 4 TV and WJLA TV 7. As with most articles, I try to pull 3 or 4 sources on the same article to get, and it's amazing sometimes you don't realize you're talking about the same shooting. But anyway, this is in Chilham, Maryland. Police say a homeowner shot a man who he caught breaking into his vehicle hours after Christmas Day. The 32-year-old suspect, who had no fixed address, died after he was shot early Tuesday morning outside the home in Chilham, Maryland. It's in Prince George's County. A resident of the home in the 6200 block of Sago Parkway called 911 about 2:15 a.m. to report a shooting. Responding officers arrived to find the suspect with a gunshot wound to his upper body. He was pronounced dead, apparently at the scene. According to the preliminary investigations, detectives believe the homeowner shot the suspect from inside his home after the deceased has broken a window in the homeowner's vehicle. Police said in a Wednesday morning update. When you look at this crime scene, the house, where the house is sitting, there's a driveway goes up to the side of the house, and his truck was parked next to the house. The front of entrance to the house is 90 degrees away, but the side entrance to the house is there, and his truck is parked in his driveway well onto his property, next to the side entrance or back entrance to the house. Anyway, News 4 footage of the scene shows a bullet hole in a window. Police now have video from the homeowner's surveillance system, which shows the subject's action, that would be the bad guy's action, prior to the shooting. The dispatcher said during the 911 call, the caller thinks there's more than one suspect, advised that they were trying to steal her dad's truck, and then the shots went off. He's shot in the head, the perp. The targeted vehicle was parked in the homeowner's driveway, and the second suspect is believed to have run from the scene. That's fairly common when there's 2 bad guys and you shoot one, the other guy runs. They will never help their wounded count, right?
Usually when you see your partner's head go, get a hole in it, you probably usually...
You run. Well, cops don't.
No.
But bad guys, no honor among thieves. He's on his own now. Anyway. Police are still investigating what happened. Corporal Tyler Hunt told the media, "We're still working through all the details to determine what led up to the shooting. Police do not believe the deceased subject and the homeowner knew each other." Prince George's County State's Attorney's Office will determine whether any charges should be filed against the homeowner. The neighbor who asked media not to identify him said his own car had been broken into multiple times. Another told the media about 10 people were inside the house at the time of the shooting, including several children. Well, guess what? I suspect even in Texas, this guy, well, not in Texas, but this guy could be in a serious world of hurt. We're dealing with a property crime. He wasn't attacking the house. He was attacking a car that was parked in the driveway, or a truck, breaking into it. It appears that, the fact there's a lot of car break-ins, a source in the media, according to TV4, said their source they didn't identify said it looked to be a good shoot because there were a lot of car break-ins in the area. That doesn't make it a good shoot. Their source is an idiot. If there had been houses broken into and this guy's trying to break in the house, you can use that and say, look, we're all aware of this. Actually, that works against him because it shows, a lot of people were leaving stuff in their car and getting it stolen. It appears, from what I can gather, this appears only to be a property crime. Try and figure out where the human endangerment is during this shoot. It isn't. And maybe there's some details that make this a valid shooting, or maybe NBC just got it wrong. I mean, NBC is usually, well, actually, usually NBC is wrong, but, you know, I don't want to say that on the air. So,
Good thing you didn't say that on the air.
I'm really glad I didn't. Yeah, we were on commercial break and just chatting privately.
Yeah. Well, as you well know, here in Nevada, this would not be a good shoot. Nevada, we cannot use deadly force for a property crime. I don't know what, obviously, like you said, there may be something there, but I don't know what justification. Yes, you're angry. Yes, this guy broke into your car, and it's, you know, it's your property and all that. But folks, taking somebody's life over it is ridiculous. You know, if you're worried about somebody breaking in, and you know, you have car insurance, number one. If you're worried about breaking in and stealing something out of the car, take whatever you've got that's of value out of the car and take it into the house. If he tries to break into the house, it would be a different story. But reality-wise, this guy killed a guy probably for some CDs or some change in the console of the vehicle. You know.
Suppose the Hope Diamond was in the vehicle.
Well, even if it was the Hope Diamond. You know, this is the thing, folks, that I see this from time to time where people do this and you get your emotions, and, you know, it's like, well, that SOB, he's not stealing out of my car, and I'll fix him. Well, he shot a guy in the head and killed him over whatever property was there. If he doesn't get charged, I'll be absolutely flabbergasted if he doesn't. Maryland is not a very Texas-like, if you will, or even Nevada, or even west of, say, the Colorado, the Rockies state versus California and Washington, of course. But it's not it's not known as a real gun-friendly state. So I don't know how this is going to pan out at the end.
I can see it. I mean, I can see the homeowner's defense lawyer saying, well, the guy had come onto the property more than 100 feet, and maybe he came through an unlocked gate or hopped over a fence to get to where the car was. So,
to me, unless he came through the living room to get to the car, there's no way that you could really justify that. To me, in my mind, and after 31 years in law enforcement, there's no way I would look at this as being a justifiable homicide.
Yeah, we had a case like this a couple of months ago, that the guy had left a whole bunch of guns in the car. He kept guns in his car for emergencies, so he'd always have a rifle, a shotgun, and 3 pistols wherever he happened to be driving. And he used the argument that he fired, in this case, at the fleeing vehicle, and the bullet hit the driver. And it had some traction with the jury because of future crimes as yet unknown. You know, if you're shooting in this guy and he turns out he's Charles Manson, and you knew that at the time, you know, there's arguments you can make when you get there, but when there's nothing in there's children in the house or whatever, but there's no children in the car. All you've got is a trespasser trying to break into a vehicle that has nothing in it. You know, if it had the Hope Diamond in it, who would care?
It
doesn't matter.
Still, the Hope Diamond's a piece of property. This was a unfortunate shooting. I don't know. Again, based on these facts here, I can't see how you could remotely say that this was a justifiable shooting.
Now, you could point the gun out the window and yell, "Get away from my car, I'll shoot you."
Yeah.
That might work, and the guy will run away. But you're not really going to shoot him. It's a bluff. You're permitted to lie to bad guys. If it's appropriate, do that. We're at the end of our time. Thanks for watching Fired Up. Please share these broadcasts with your friends and support our sponsors. The commercials that you see keep us on the air. Capitalism wins. It keeps us on the tube here. We'll be back next Thursday on YouTube at the American Guns and Glory Network. Have a good evening.